Hey everyone, it's John with today's Active Self-Protection Extra lesson, and today I want to talk about why the Springfield XD is the McRib of defensive sidearms. If you live in America, you probably know the McRib. It meets all of the definitions of food. I mean, it has meat, it has pickles, it has onions, it has a bun. It's not great, but it's not terrible. And when you see one, you know if you have it, you're going to regret it. Although it has an incredible cult following, and some people will do anything to defend how the McRib is the greatest thing that ever was. That's really the exact same thing that we see with the Springfield XD. It meets all of the requirements of what a pistol kind of sort of should be. It checks the boxes, but it's not great. In fact, in some ways, it's bad, but it does have a cult following that makes some, just a few people, but some rabid fans of this. All right, let's talk just a little bit about the history of this gun. This gun was made, it was invented and designed in the 90s by a Croatian company. And that Croatian company, Hrvatske Samokrace, is I believe how it's said, imported this gun through Intrac to the United States as the HS-2000, Hrvatske Samokrace being Croatian for Croatian pistol. And so it was brought into the US and brought in at a price point of under 300 bucks. Now, when it came in under 300 bucks, it compared in the late 90s, 2000, turn of the century, very favorably at that price point to guns like Glocks and like M&Ps and guns like that because of the price point difference. You could get this for a couple $100 cheaper than you could get a comparable Glock. Now, in 2002, Springfield Armory licensed this pistol from the original manufacturers and put their label on it and renamed it the Springfield XD. Now you got to recognize, and let's remember from an historical perspective, the Springfield Armory of today is not the Springfield Armory that used to produce M1s for the United States military. That company was shuttered by the US government in 1968 and then reformed as a civilian company in 1974. Different companies with some, shared heritage. So Springfield Armory bought the rights to this pistol to import it into the United States with their name on it. So they put the name Springfield Armory on the side, and they jacked the price of this gun up to right exactly what the prices of a comparable Glock or an M&P are. And they named it the XD, which they said stood for extreme duty. So that was like the thing, right, at the turn of the century, right, is to use the X for extreme, and that made it super cool. So that's where the XD line came from. So when I see somebody with a Springfield XD, it's not like seeing somebody who is open carrying a high point, which is a bad, terrible, unreliable pistol. It's not in that category. It's in the window of acceptability, but for the price point and the features, I don't think that it is a solid choice, and I would avoid it. Now, I speak from some experience, friends. The very first handgun that I ever carried was a Springfield XD in .40 caliber. I'll show myself out. I'll go take my walk of shame now because I got all of the boxes wrong, and it took me quite a while to figure out why this was not the best handgun for me and why, as a trainer, I don't recommend it. Now, I do want to say something of an anecdote here about the XD. You take it for what it's worth. If you look at the largest police departments in America, literally nobody issues the Springfield XD, and almost none of them even allow it. Now, some places do, some smaller PDs do, and I think a couple of police departments do actually issue the Springfield XD, but they are very few and far between. Now, there's some politics involved in that. I totally get it. But part of the politics is the cost of ownership of the gun. And this gun has to go back to the armorer a lot. And so the cost of use for the police department is higher per officer. And guess what that means? It'll be higher for you as well. So the fact that almost no major police departments, well, no major ones that I know of, and almost no one that I can find of any police departments issues this gun, and most of them don't allow it as a duty gun for police officers, should tell you something about how it's regarded in circles of people who carry firearms professionally. Before we talk about why it's bad and why I don't recommend it, let's talk about why people do like this gun. Some people like this gun because they say that the grip angle is upright like a 1911, and so they like that 1911 style grip angle. You'll hear people talk about this versus the slanted grip angle of a Glock and how they like this one better. Some people really like this grip safety right here, and they say that's why they got to have it because it's more safe. So it doesn't have an external safety, but it has that. Alternately, some people people say when they holster the gun, this is kind of like having a striker control device or the gadget that is kind of becoming popular with Glocks now, because what they can do is they can take their hand off of this and then the gun won't fire as they put it in the holster. Some people also like that it has a visible chamber indicator and a tactile chamber indicator. So it'll come up and then that way you can feel it. And it also has a visible striker indicator right here. So you can tell if the striker is back. Now let's talk about why I think this thing is acceptable, but it's not ideal. Now, certainly this gun will eat ammo. I had an XD in 40 caliber. It ate most anything that I fed it on a regular basis. And most people that own XDs that I know, they're about the same. You know, the gun runs just fine and it doesn't have much problems. Now, that said, most people that I know that do own these and do use these are not running them hard. People that I know that take these out to classes, man, first problem that I see with these as a trainer all the time, I could tell you this, if somebody's gun pukes on the line, I'm not talking about a simple ammo malfunction or a limp wrist or something like that that we can just run, tap, and rack. If I have a gun that goes puke and we have to spend some time on the gun, first thing I always say is it's a 1911, isn't it? And almost always we walk down there and it's some form of a 1911. If it's a striker fire gun, dollars to donuts, it's a Springfield XD. That's not to say that Glocks never puke. That's not to say that M&Ps never puke, but the McRib of Sidearms is more commonly found in the puke bin than anyone else. And this isn't just me. When I talk to other trainers, trainers like Aaron Cowan, who keeps numeric data, that he sees XDs puke on his lines about 4 times as frequently as anything else, according to him. Other trainers report the same. Now, we can't really get scientific data on that because there are too many variables that confound it, but the anecdotal evidence piles up. Every trainer that I know reports more problems, significant problems on the XD than any other line. So if you're not running this gun hard, if you're just going to the range once a year and you're putting on 2 boxes of ammo through it, you clean it afterwards, you keep it nice, you probably won't have that problem. But if you actually train with the gun, if you take this gun to a 1,000-round class for the weekend, the chances of it going is way higher than the competition. The big culprit of problems with the Springfield XD is this, the XD magazine. These magazines are poo-poo. I do not like them. Yes, they're metal, and that's a good thing. And I know some people are like, oh, Glock mags are plastic, and plastic is bad. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Actual Glock mags have an inner sleeve of steel in them, and they're well built. These, on the other hand, are flimsy. These little feed lips go to crap all the time. And when they go to crap, they make this gun have problems. And this gun will stop feeding reliably and start having big problems sooner because of these magazines than comparable firearms. The next thing I don't like is right up here, the roll pin. You start running these guns with any kind of regularity. You run them hard on a range, you run them through a class of 500, 600, 700 rounds in a weekend, that roll pin will start to come out. It comes out super reliably. You can't just put duct tape on it. When that roll pin starts working its way out, this gun is done for the weekend until you get it to the armorer. Finally, and the big thing that I don't like about the Springfield XD design is this little grip safety. You know, some people love that grip safety. They think of it as an extra layer of protection, but you got to recognize this gun already has 2 safeties on the inside of it, has both a trigger safety and a drop safety in it. And so like other striker fire designs, this is actually redundant and not necessary. Now, when people go, well, it means that I can't pull the trigger when I don't have a grip on the gun. Well, guess what? We're going to teach you to put a grip on the gun when it's in the holster, a full firing grip. So there goes that. And when you put the gun back in the holster, full firing grip until the gun is all the way in the holster. So that doesn't really add any safety. And 2 things about this grip safety. Number 1, the sear inside this grip safety, I see go a lot. About 6,000 rounds is what I have heard a lot of armorers talk about. Now, some go more. I know you've got a buddy that's got an XD that's got 364,000 rounds down the pipe. Well, you know what? I can tell you somebody's got a Yugo station wagon that has 540,000 miles on the original oil and is still going strong. That doesn't mean it's likely, okay? I see these grip sears go all the time, and every armorer I know tells me this grip sear gives them problems. And when it goes, here's the thing with this grip sear. If I am not holding it, I cannot move the slide. The slide on this gun is locked until I depress the grip sear. And so once that grip sear goes, this gun is locked up. And I know people who have to send guns back to Springfield loaded. They have to send it back with a round in the chamber because there's literally nothing else you can do but send it back to them that way. That is really bad. The other part of the grip sear that's not great is I see this on the line all the time with students. We start putting them under any time pressure whatsoever. any time pressure at all, and students start fouling the grip on this gun. They start getting a weird grip, and instead of getting a really good solid firing grip like we're supposed to, what they start doing is I start seeing students cheat, or they get around and they're on the wrong side and they don't have that grip sear depressed correctly under stress, and so then they pull the gun out and it goes, oh no, this gun's not going off. What's wrong with my gun? And they start tap rack and it's not depressed, so they can't recycle the gun and nothing works. And so I see that on the line with monotonous regularity, which is why I really don't think this is good, because there's going to be times where things are bad in a defensive encounter. You draw that gun, you may not have a perfect grip on the gun. And unlike a 1911, where the grip safety is across the entire back, it's just in a small part. You can miss it fairly easily and still have a decent grip on the gun. And I don't like it for that reason. And finally, and this is preference. I understand this is preference, okay? It's an unloaded gun. I don't like this trigger. It's really spongy, and I just, man, it's just not for me. Now, I don't really care about that, but it does kind of add to the McRib flavor of the Springfield XD. So for all those reasons, I just think this is not a great gun. Now, once again, is it an acceptable gun? Yeah, it's acceptable. Like, I won't kick a student off the line who comes to training with one. Look, if that's what you got, then I'm going to dance with the one who brung it. If this gun was still being imported by Intrac and it was $300, well, then I'd say, hey, okay, student, then that's a budget gun. That's a gun that might help you in that budget line, and it's probably better than a lot in that budget line, though I would tape this grip safety stupidity down because I think it's worthless. But at $500, the answer for the problems that lie in the Springfield XD are right next door in the Glock case. They're right next door in the M&P case. They're right next door in the HK case at a VP9. I just don't think this gun does anything better than those guns do at the same price. If the price was lower, then I would be like, okay, cool, man. I mean, it's an option, right? It's a budget option. If your budget is low, go for it. At the exact same price of this, with these crappy magazines that go like crazy, with a grip sear that goes at 5,000 or 6,000 rounds and locks this gun up dead, one that really doesn't give a lot of margin for error if you had a problem with this, one where the roll pin reliably works its way out of the gun under any kind of duress in class, I just don't think it's there. So it feels like the McRib to me. I know, man, some people love this gun. Like, I know people who are just rabid fans of the Springfield XD, and this is going to generate some hurt posteriors as people say, man, this is the greatest sidearm in history. I just don't think it is. So look, guys, you carry what you want. If you want to carry a Springfield XD, I'm totally cool with that. If you want to go eat a McRib, that's cool, man. I just don't think that the McRib is really that good. Objectively, it's not a great sandwich. Subjectively, you may like it, but that doesn't mean it's really good. But if you want to eat it, rock on. This is not objectively a good firearm at its price point. If you want to carry one and you want to think it's the greatest thing since beer in a can, rock on. I just think that it's the McRib of sidearms, and I think you can do better at the same price point.